Welcome to Alaska Matters with Chris Story. To reach Chris, call 226-3933. 226-3933. Now, giving you something to talk about, here's Chris Story.
Thank you, Nan White. Dave Webb is your engineer producer today on Alaska Matters. Tiffany Story, as always, taking your phone calls, 226-3933. I'm Chris Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. We're broadcasting live today from the corner of All Things Possible and Prosperity Place. Today, you'll meet Chef Billy. Billy is a transplant from parts unknown. He'll be at the Land's End Resort tonight and every night for the rest of his life. You'll get to meet him today, and he's going to share with you some secrets to cooking halibut to the perfect temperature, what wine goes brilliantly with salmon, and you'll find out how to make the perfect home fry. At least I hope we will, because I'm tired of making French fries at home, and they just come out soggy and nasty. So hopefully, Chef Billy will educate us on how to cook Alaskan style. Plus, your chance to win a free Blackwater Bend Espresso coffee card during our Alaskan Mind Bender. Also today, this is not exactly or officially the, what did we call it last year? The Great Thanks Giveaway. Remember we did that last year? This is not really the Great Thanks Giveaway, but it's close to it. What we're giving away also today is an Alaska Aloha shirt, the spirit of Alaska, an Alaskan state of mind here in the Last Frontier. Tiffany's new beautiful line of products. You'll love them. We'll be giving away one of those lovely shirts today and two, not one, but two tickets to the Taste of New Orleans buffet at the Land's End Resort. That is this and every single Tuesday night. You'll have an opportunity to taste New Orleans, and I've got two tickets here, a pair of them for free for you. Well, what we always like to do is start off with a positive note and a little bit of a happy thought here. So why don't we tell some great Alaskan jokes? How about this? How do you know you're Alaskan? Well, you know exactly which leaves make the best toilet paper. That's one good way to tell if you're talking to an Alaskan. Why should Alaskans be so excited about Russia holding the 2018 World Cup? Because if you're anything like Sarah Palin, you can watch the games from your own backyard. Picking on Sarah Palin, I did find several Sarah Palin jokes. Let's try this one. How do you know if Sarah Palin and Todd are having marital problems? Well, she'll send Todd out hunting with Dick Cheney. It's one good indication. Hey, honey, I got you a ticket out there to Dick Cheney's farm, and he's going to take a shot at you. What's the Alaskan Inuit's ancient approximation for the mathematical term pie? Well, of course, that's an Eskimo pie. I loved Eskimo. My grandfather and I could eat an entire box of Eskimo pies together, and my grandma would, of course, they're in the freezer, but upstairs, and Grandpa would be watching football or something down in his den, and he'd say, Chrissy, why don't you go up and get us another Eskimo pie? And I would go up, and if Grandma would hear the freezer door open, she'd say, that's enough. You two had enough. We couldn't get enough of those Eskimo pies. What happened to the 5-year-old boy who won the moose calling contest at the Alaska Zoo in Anchorage? You hear this one? Yeah, Sarah Palin shot him. It's just not funny. Hey, why couldn't baby Jesus be born in Alaska? This is horrifically offensive, by the way. Because they couldn't find 3 wise men up here. Please, we're filled with wise people here in Alaska. Why do Alaskans have TGIF on their shoes? Well, it just means toes go in first. This is really getting hurtful. I don't know who sent these. What do you get when you drive quickly through Alaska? Well, of course, you get a vice presidential nomination. Boo. I don't like that one. I need to... No. No, Sarah... If you're listening, Sarah, and if she does, she tunes into the podcast. Sarah, I apologize for that, and somebody's going to be fired. Somebody's losing their job here at Alaska Matters. What are the best 4 years of any Alaskan's life? That'd be the 3rd grade. Stop it. Don't even... If you're laughing right now, that is a problem. You've got the problem. What do you call the University of Alaska football player with a championship ring? A thief. A thief in the night. Oh, we'll be back with so much more. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right here at Alaska Matters.
Commit this number to memory, 399-1526. When you need snow removal, snow plowing, and sanding this winter, Call Richard at 399-1526. Great Wire Construction, locally owned and lifelong Alaskan operated, can take care of all your snow plowing, snow removal, and sanding needs. If you'd like, Richard will deliver sand to your residence for your use when needed. Licensed, bonded, and insured. Great Wire Construction, 399-1526.
Now that it's colder and darkness has taken over, it's easy to let it get you down. But you know, one thing that really perks me up, how more and more people are lighting up their houses for the holidays, thanks to Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy Landscaping. Dutch Boy makes turning your home or business into a cheery piece of the winter puzzle, minus the hassle of having to find a good spot to base a ladder on ice, battle the elements, or scale that roof. It makes a lot of sense to rely on expert decorators trained in safety and proper installation methods. Christmas Decor offers customized lighting displays, garlands, wreaths, and bows. They can design the display, install it, maintain it. They even take down and clean up when the season's over. So if you've been dreading hauling out boxes and boxes of holiday decorations and the threat to life and limb it entails, maybe it's your year to leave it to Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy Landscaping. Find out more about brightening up your place with professional holiday decorating. Contact Danny at 235-7140. 235-7140. Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy. Call now.
Chris Story here, your host for great adventures in real estate. Do you remember Atari video games? What about the game called Air Raid? Well, one Southern Californian man found a copy in his storage unit. His 1980s video game sold for over $33,000. What would you do with the money? He's remodeling his daughter's newly purchased fixer-upper. What a dad. Catch Radio Realty every Wednesday at 12:30 on KPEN 102 FM.
In constant sorrow through his day.
I'm Chris Story. You're listening to Alaska Matters. There's no sorrow here, no sorrow today or tomorrow, because you've got great adventures in the last frontier. And I mentioned something earlier about Tiffany. In fact, I think it was last week on this very program, you and I were discussing Alaska Aloha, Tiffany's new business venture, and we gave away a shirt. And we've got one more to give away. But first, let me invite you up to the Nutcracker. Imagine you're walking on the white sand beaches of Hawaii. The sand sifting through your toes. Time stands still. The beauty surrounding you invites you to play. Alaska Aloha is that spirit of Alaska, a Hawaiian state of mind in the last frontier. Look for the Alaska Aloha booth at the Nutcracker Fair in early December. Active wear with an Alaskan flair. Alaska Aloha, the spirit of Alaska. Man, it makes me want to go down to Bishop's Beach with a fine bottle of something, take my boots off and run my feet through the sand. How about you? Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to send me a text message right now, 299-7653. Enter to win right now. You'll walk away with an Alaska Aloha shirt. I guarantee it. If you send me a text right now, 299-7653, here's how you enter to win. Send me your name and your favorite Hawaiian island. 299-7653. 299-7653. What's your name and your favorite Hawaiian island? And you will enter to win one of Tiffany's beautiful Alaska Aloha shirts. Speaking of beautiful, Tiffany and I took a quick trip to Anchorage here over the weekend. And you know what made my trip? Blackwater Bend. Stopped out there to have some coffee before we hit the road. And there's nothing better than seeing the bright lights of the Blackwater Bend on. When you want coffee and you're halfway between Homer and Anchor Point and you're counting on it, and she's open all the time, and she is such a great person. And her, who is she? That's Pat. Pat and her family have been serving coffee in that same location for decades. This is a second-generation operation here in Alaska. Do support Blackwater Bend Espresso, the best coffee you're going to find on the peninsula. And so I want to send you there for free, and here's how you do it. You get a coffee card. This isn't a free cup of coffee. This is a free coffee card. Or you can exchange it for some beans if you choose, or one of their great hoodies. It's up to you. But I'd say go for the coffee card and just keep coming back for great coffee. Here's your question. At the University of Fairbanks, Alaska, researchers are studying the link between Arctic ground squirrels and what? Arctic ground squirrels and what? Is it A, obesity, B, addiction, or C, hypothermia? What are researchers at the University of Fairbanks studying the link between Arctic ground squirrels and obesity, addiction, or hypothermia? Call right now, 226-3933, 226-3933. Tiffany is standing by to take your phone calls at 226-3933. We want to thank Blackwater Bend, and we want to send you out there for free. Well, how does somebody end up in Alaska? They're from Nolens. They end up in Homer, Alaska, but not just in Homer, Alaska. They end up at the end of the road at our resort in Alaska, 4 miles into the Kachemak Bay. Well, that would be Chef Billy. He's on the line. Chef Billy, how in the world do you go from wherever you were to the end of the road at Land's End? What is your story?
Well, I actually drove out from New York City. We left New York in the middle of May and started driving out. I found out about the job through the miracle of Craigslist. They had the ad up on the Kenai Peninsula Craigslist, and my fiance and I were looking to do something a little more adventurous than living in New York City, where she had been there for a couple of years. I was there for a year. And so around the country, I had worked in Juneau about a decade ago, and have always had a real love for the wild beauty of Alaska. And so I had a few offers from places, a lot of lodges and stuff that were looking for seasonal help. But the people here at Land's End that I had kind of developed a relationship with, talking on the phone through several interviews and stuff, really made us an offer that we couldn't refuse. And so we packed up the car and headed west.
Now, you were a chef in New York City?
I was. I owned a restaurant in the Pacific Northwest for about 5 years, which I sold back in 2010. And just after I kind of freed myself from the restaurant, I wanted to do some traveling, so I traveled for a while. I worked in New York City, and then came back west. I have such a love for the Pacific Northwest and for Alaska that it was a pretty easy decision. We were looking around, we were looking and do something for the summer, which that kind of turned into more than that here. But choosing between like Block Island on the East Coast or Alaska was a pretty simple decision for both of us.
Oh, neat. Now, what about your wife? Does she like it here as well? You said you'd lived in Juneau before. What was her exposure to Alaska?
She had not been. She also lived in the Pacific Northwest for a long time, so she was, a little bit used to the weather patterns that are fairly similar between, I'd say, the Kenai Peninsula and the Pacific Northwest. But especially driving through Canada and into Alaska like we did, just the beauty of the entire drive was incredible. And we live downtown in Homer, so we have a great view where we can get to the beach really easily, and that kind of just kind of sets the tone for our life,
Nice. That's great. I was driving through, as I just said earlier, I'd taken a road trip to Anchorage, and I stopped in Soldotna to get some stuff. And I don't need to mention the name of the store, certainly not the name of the clerk, but I asked this particular clerk, how's it going? I was just trying to be friendly. And she said, overworked and underpaid. I mean, that was her first reaction. And I hear somebody like you, Chef Billy, that has driven across the country to follow your passion, which is cooking. Obviously, you're a chef. And what would you say? So first of all, let me ask you two questions, and you can address it any way you want. When did you know you wanted to become a chef, number one? And number two, what would you say to somebody who is working a day in, day out, that doesn't and hasn't found their passion and is sort of like just working a job? So when did you know you wanted to be a chef, and what do you say to somebody that just doesn't feel any purpose?
Well, I grew up in the Deep South. And so I grew up in a family that food was always taken really seriously in. I grew up fishing and hunting with my grandparents and my parents and gardening. I'm pretty sure that the reason that my grandparents loved having grandkids so much is because they could have a bigger garden.
Labor, you mean?
It's true. And at the time, I really, it was like, we have to dig potatoes again. We have to shuck corn again, But then as I grew up, and especially when I moved to cities around America and realized how many people had never had the opportunity to actually pull their food out of a garden for themselves, for what I wound up doing as a chef, it was priceless. So I always had a love for food and a love for things that tasted good, but probably when I actually moved to New Orleans in 1989 and started being around other people who were really passionate about great food and realized that it was something that I had kind of an aptitude for, I started taking it very seriously and started trying to, read as much as I possibly could. I still try and read as many trade magazines for both food and wine as I can. I'm always watching food stuff on TV, and even though I cook full time at Land's End, I still cook at home all the time.
So it's a real passion. All right, great. What happens if you see somebody in your kitchen that maybe doesn't have that same drive or passion? Is there anything you can do to help foster that in somebody, or do they just have to find it on their own? I guess is kind of.
I've always said that I can teach people in the kitchen. I can teach them the basics of cooking, but I can't make you love it. And so I think, the love for what you do has to come from something that you have within yourself. And it definitely, I think, at least in cooking, you can't stay in the same place for a long time. As a cook, you need to be exposed to different seasons, different ingredients, different regions to really develop a style that you can call your own. And so I think for anything, it's important to get out there and see what else is out there besides where you are. If you're unhappy where you are, especially as connected as everyone is today through other forms of, communication, you can be physically far away from people that you care about, but still feel very connected to them. And so I would say, if you're unhappy, get out there and find something that's going to make you happy. It's a big country,
I like that.
There's lots of great places.
Yeah, cool. Good for you. Okay, well, you talked about developing a style and so forth. So having lived in the Pacific Northwest and owned a restaurant there and cooked there, give us your take on the perfect halibut. How do you bake or cook the perfect halibut to the right temperature? Because my wife, Tiffany, one time we went to a little aside here. We went to a restaurant and ordered the halibut entree of the evening. Looked fantastic. At least it read fantastic on the menu. And she said to the waitress, who was relatively new at her job, she said, "Can you ask the chef to not overcook the halibut?" And I sort of went, ooh, I don't think you should have said that. Anyway, so I kind of assumed the waitress wouldn't say anything. Well, she came back out a little bit later, and she said, "By the way, the chef said he doesn't need any advice on how to cook the halibut. He knows." And then to make the story worse, it came out dry. And so what's the secret to making the halibut cook to the right temperature but not dry?
Well, first of all, I think halibut is a little bit more forgiving of a fish than a lot of other fish. But the perfect way I like my halibut cooked the best is just pan-seared. I think grilling a fish over an open flame, especially a fish like halibut, when you expose it to kind of open flames like that, you can really get some crusty, burned, or dry spots on the fish. So I like to just get a saute pan going with a little bit of olive oil in it, a little bit of salt and pepper on the fish. I find that a good olive oil spray, something to make it not stick to the pan, but something that's not, really some kind of chemical spray to put on there. But I mean, just a pure olive oil, a pure canola oil spray. And just sear one side of the fish until you get that kind of golden brown. So you get that golden brown look on it. Turn your pan off, and then flip the fish over and just let it sit in the pan to kind of cook through residual heat to the middle. I like my fish cooked, perfectly in the middle, so I don't like it to be too raw, unless it's something like tuna or some really some really meaty fish like tuna or marlin or swordfish. But for halibut and salmon, I like it just to be a little opaque in the middle. And I think if you pan sear it on one side, and then flip it and let it cook through the residual heat in the hot pan with the pan turned off for about 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, that's perfect for me.
Nice. Man, I'm getting hungry. I'm sorry if you haven't had lunch yet. This is great. All right, talk to me. Let's just stay on the subject of fish and talk about fish and chips. I like to make French fries at home, even if I get them out of a bag or whatever. They still come out soggy. So is there a way to make a home fry that obviously we don't all have deep fryers and so forth, which is probably optimal, but is there a way to make or a secret to making a good home fry, Chef Billy?
I think the most important thing about making fried potatoes of any kind at home is the potato that you're using, which my favorite is Yukon Gold potatoes. They're such a rich, flavorful potato on their own. They're not too starchy. They're not too cured. Like a russet potato, has been cured for a while. It has a really thick skin. Yukons have a nice thin skin. And I think the most important thing is not trying to fry the potato from raw to a golden brown potato. So what you want to do is try and get a bunch of potatoes, Yukon Golds, preferably that are roughly the same size. Boil them in a nice pot of salted water until they're cooked through, but obviously not falling apart. So you kind of have to pay attention. But it should be about probably 20 minutes of a rolling boil on the potatoes. Cool them down completely. And then I like to cut my potatoes into kind of a thick wedge after they're cooled completely. And even if you don't have like a Fry Daddy or something that's an actual fryer at home, any stock pot that you have, put an inch or so of oil on the bottom. Leave yourself plenty of room, and then don't try and fry so many potatoes at once that you compromise the temperature of your oil. You want your oil to be at about probably 325 degrees in your pot, and then have some dry paper towels already set aside, so when you scoop your potatoes that you've already boiled to perfection, cut into the perfect shape that you want, whether that's a home fry that's in a cube or a thicker wedge, drop them in your oil and fry them, and not having to cook them from raw all the way to golden brown, since you boiled them already, makes them, I think, it's perfect. And Yukon Golds taste so good. When they're fried properly, they have that nice crispy skin on the outside, and they're really like mashed potatoes in the middle.
Wow. I hate you. I'm so hungry right now, and I am so far from any French fries in the world. That's awesome. Thank you. That's all great stuff. I was writing this down, and for those of you that maybe missed it or can't write it down, you can listen back to this program at AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. Hey, I want to ask you what's the perfect wine to pair with salmon, Chef Billy, but before I do that, I want to give you at home or in the car or at work, wherever you are, an opportunity to go and try some of the delectable foods that Chef Billy creates every single day out at Land's End, but specifically on Tuesday, they have I'm calling it the New Orleans buffet or the Taste of New Orleans, but it's really what, Billy?
It's NOLA night.
NOLA night. There you go. Every Tuesday night, and you can go for free. I've got a pair of tickets, and I want to send you out there. Try this chef's food for yourself. And here's what you do. Text me your name right now, 299-7653, 299-7653, and just send me your name, and we'll draw a name in that. Yeah, that's tonight. Tiffany's like, I think she's got a little smiley face going here. I think we're going to be going out there tonight. Chef Billy. Okay, Chef. The right wine for salmon. What is the perfect wine for salmon? Or is there just one perfect wine?
Wine is another equal passion of mine for food. At the restaurant that I owned, I also ran our wine program, and we had an amazing wine list, which we had a Wine Spectator Award for, and we have some great wines on our list at Land's End as well. One of my favorites with salmon, really any Pinot Noir from Oregon, I think it's so versatile. You can really pair that type of wine, that grape.
Well, I'm going to be super ignorant here and say, is that a white or red?
It's a red.
Okay, with a salmon. Oh, interesting. I would have just assumed it would be a white with salmon.
I think there's almost any white wine I think is going to go great with seafood, but I just love the pairing of Pinot Noir and salmon. Salmon, I think, has enough fat and enough flavor in it to carry a light to medium-bodied red wine. And the wines of the Pacific Northwest, again, something that I am just in love with. The Domaine Drouhin Pinot that we have on our wine list here at Land's End is a fabulous wine. I know it's also available in town, but the grape itself, Pinot Noir, is just really lovely with salmon, and I think it's a perfect pairing. I mean, if you wanted to get into lighter or medium-bodied French wines, any Beaujolais or anything from the Côte d'Rhône in France would be great, but my first choice with salmon would be any bottle of Oregon Pinot Noir.
I could listen to you talk about food for hours, but unfortunately I don't have hours here, so just welcome to Homer. It was a pleasure to get to meet you, Chef Billy Roverson. Am I pronouncing that right, Roverson?
Roverson, yep.
Roverson. Okay, I knew I could do something wrong here today, but that's okay. Chef at Land's End Resort. Hey, I hope you'll come back and talk to us again. This was great.
Anytime. Absolutely, anytime. Thank you so much.
Okay, don't you go anywhere. We're going to announce the winners for our Land's End Taste of New Orleans, as I insist on calling it, and the Alaska Aloha winner, plus Blackwater Bend Mindbender right here on Alaska Matters.
Talk about wow factor. Deborah Lysick at Bay Realty in Homer has a great new listing. It's an immaculate property inside and out. I mean a spotless top-to-bottom reconstructed home with ocean views forever. Cozy guest cabin, a lush green lawn, major greenhouse, gardens, 2-car garage, boathouse, shed, sauna, plus what might be the world's finest fish cleaning setup. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath home on almost 5 acres on Katrina Boulevard in Iliamna Meadows subdivision. And it's just like being in your very own personal nature retreat. To get a showing of this spectacular listing, call Deborah Lysick at Bay Realty in Homer at 235-6183. That's 235-6183. Or check what Bay Realty has to offer online at bayrealtyalaska.com. Call Deborah Lysick today at 235-6183. And remember, when you need results, Bay Realty works.
What's the first thing you turn to in the Homer News? Come on, you can tell me. Is it the police blotter that catches you first? Or how about that crazy cartoon? Or do you go straight for the letters to the editor to see what your wacky neighbors are up to? Well, the good news is there's no wrong answer. The Homer News can be consumed any way you like it, even online. HomerNews.com is updated daily. So this Thursday, whether you're alone or with somebody, get your copy of the Homer News and dive right in.
Just take those old records off the shelf. I sit and listen to them by myself.
You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. Chef Billy got me hungry, man. What a great guy. You know, Dave and I were just talking that no matter what your passion is or what you're interested in, he is passionate about what he's doing as a chef, and that's fun to listen to. That is really, really fun to listen to. So here's what I wished I had said to the gal that I ran into in Saldana. You're born with a purpose and endowed with the seeds of greatness. You know, maybe that's what we should start saying to people that are unhappy in what they're doing in life and so forth. Just literally say, for example, she said that she's overworked and underpaid. You know, you're born with a purpose and you're endowed with the seeds of greatness, but those are seeds. You're not born great, you become great. You know, don't wish things were better. Wish you were better. Be better in the moment. Don't wish you were fitter. Exercise. Go do something about it. What are the habits of successful people? If you study and do like successful people do, you will likewise turn around results in your own life. Success and happiness are seeds, and you're born with them. But it's our job, it's your job to water them, nurture them, become great. You were born with the seeds of greatness and endowed with a purpose, and live on purpose, like Chef Billy, moving to the end of the road from New York City. Imagine that. Answered and accepted an ad on Craigslist, and here he is, Chef Billy at Land's End. All right, so got a lot to do here in the last couple of minutes. So we're just going to announce the winners real quick, and guess what, Sharon? You're going to Land's End for free. I'll have a couple of tickets here for you. You are the winner for our Taste of New Orleans. I refuse to just say it the other way. I think they're going to have to come around to my way of thinking. And April, you won Alaska Aloha. That's right. April is the winner of our Alaska Aloha contest, and she will come down here to the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway at Story Real Estate and pick up her T-shirt. And April, I'll let you know when I got that ready for you. Just thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. And what else did I have to do? Blackwater Blend Espresso. What does a ground squirrel have in common with obesity? That's it. The answer was obesity. And some researchers in Fairbanks, at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, I hope they didn't hear that quip about the football player stealing the ring, because that could hurt. But let me get to that. First of all, let me announce the winners on that. Our winners, Adam and Mary, you are the winners. You're going to the Blackwater Bend for free. Adam and Mary, thank you very much. Well, what happens is essentially they're studying the microbial contents of the ground squirrel, the Arctic ground squirrel, that allows them in about a 3-week period of time to gain 50% of their body weight and store that as fat for the winter. No big gulps. That's right. That's one way to do it, though. But that's not the right way, Dave. So basically what they want to do is they want to study the microbial bacteria that's in the stomach of the squirrel and determine if there's a way to take and create a probiotic that you and I can take that will turn off the fat storage, right? Turning it off. So the squirrels turn it on. We need to turn it off. That's what it's got in common. I thought that was really, really fascinating. So anyway, Dave, thanks for making this a great broadcast.
It was fun. Love doing it.
Absolutely. And be sure to go to Tiffany's Facebook page. Look her up on Facebook at Alaska Aloha and look for her at the Nutcracker Fair. I could not be more proud. Tiffany's going to be a great success, and so will you. Please remember, you, too, were born with a purpose and endowed with the seeds of greatness. Tomorrow we'll be here on Radio Realty. I've got some great advice for you tomorrow on Radio Realty. Alaska matters, and so do you.
The Peninsula's home for unforgettable favorites. Great listening, 620 AM, KGTL, Homer,